All right. Well, welcome back to Tea and Stuff. I've had a little hiatus. I wanted to gather up some new guests, revamp myself. I look at what I had done prior and look at what I wanted to do next. And there were a bunch of people that were on my list. And Miss Melissa here from Red Zen Tea is definitely first up. And we've surprised we haven't done one sooner, but we're both busy. Sure. The world's busy. So why don't you, if you give yourself a little bit of an introduction?
So I'm Melissa, also known as Red for Red Zen Tea. I have been in the tea industry for about 8 to 10 years. And I started out, if we were going way back, I started out with my grandmother, having tea time with her. I come from a really big family. So that one-on-one time was super special to me. And it's at the heart of what I think tea is, just like a magical moment, a magical time. And, as I got older, I got into a lot of fitness. I got my degree in exercise, nutrition, and wellness. So I did my undergrad on the ergogenic effects of green tea and how that affects your performance. So at the time I was training for a marathon and I was like, okay, cool. I could, I wanted something natural that could really help my performance. So I did my undergrad in that so that I could, have some enhancement benefits from something that's super natural. And I found that, wow, green tea has so many amazing benefits. And so then I got into the, aspect of not just the enjoyment of the magicalness of tea, but also the fact that it's so great for you and can be used medicinally and for so many other purposes. And that got me really, really interested. I went on to become, a teacher. I taught health and physical education. And then I was still like, gosh, I really want to do something with tea. And so, I just looked it up and I did the research and I found International Tea Masters Association. I became certified as a tea sommelier. And then I decided, I want to go all the way. Like I want to learn everything. So I took the blending course, how to blend your own teas. And then that was actually through the Australian Tea Masters. And then I took the Tea Masters course. So over that period of time, I decided, I want to create my own company and I want to create blends that novices will love. Novices, people who are just being introduced to tea, people who pretty much know nothing other than like Arizona iced teas. And that is a lot of my clients, honestly. I really wanted to introduce them to a way of blended and flavored type teas that were high quality, that still lended flavor after the first few steeps. Because with most tea companies that I've tasted that have flavored teas, usually after the first to the second steep, everything's gone because flavor only lasts the first steep. And that's how you'll kind of like know if it's good quality. And so I wanted to create a line that I knew Americans especially would be able to enjoy and love and kind of get that introduction of high quality tea, almost like a gateway drug to tea, and, get them further, in their tea knowledge. And tea education was a big part of that. So, obviously I'm an educator and I love education, but I also love tea education. And that's why I'll teach their blending course, the how to start your own business course, and the tea sommelier course. And I absolutely love it. It like encompasses everything that I love. It encompasses the teaching, it encompasses the tea and the health benefits. So it really is truly magical for me. And I'm honored to be able to be a part of it.
We talk a lot about blends because obviously like if you go to my Instagram, you would definitely just view me as a purist. Like there aren't like, I don't drink a ton of blends and it's not because I hate blends. It's because like you said, a lot of the blends that are accessible to me aren't great. Not just really not good. It's just very dead ingredients all around, not just the tea leaves.
Yeah.
So so before I got into Gong Fu, my brother moved out, got married and started his family out in Connecticut. And so we used to drive out, my mom and I, to go visit them. And there was this nice tea place in the town. It's called the Green Tea House. It's still there. It's in a different location. But it's owned by a Chinese woman. Her name's Ting. And her family owns a very reputable tea business, tea house in China. But she, moved to the U.S. and just wanted to like you wanted to bring tea to people, but she wanted to be very conscious of the more common Western palate that desires more than just, sometimes more than just a single ingredient.
Yeah.
And so not only did she have her own shop and she created her own all the blends she created herself, but she really made sure the ingredients were really high quality and that it would infuse multiple times. And so really early on in my, when I really started getting really, really into tea, I had the blends I was drinking were very, I would say, high end, very high end blends.
Nice.
And then when I started to then experience, the more common blends that are out there, I was just like,
turned off.
Again, it feels dead to me. Like,
yeah.
Maybe there's some flavor there, but I just don't feel that magic that that, is the mission that's tea. So it's not that I'm a naysayer of blends, but I don't
skeptical,
have that much access.
Right?
I don't have a ton of access to quality blends, but I see the great value in having a leaf and a leaf with integrity, and then looking at it and going, okay, what can I add to this? Like what fun? I think that's where a lot of fun and creativity comes in with blends. Is what is that like? Like, what's it like how do you concoct a new blend, and what goes into that?
Yeah, I love that. And I 100% agree with you. It's hit or miss when you are finding. And I think that a lot of that magic comes from personal energy. So I handcraft all my blends, and I really put in that energy and passion and love into my blends. And I can tell you honestly that my clients, they come back to me and say, I feel the difference. So I know that I'm putting that energy into it. Whereas when you see some bigger companies, and this is why I won't go corporate, I won't go big, I'm going to stay a small niche and focus on tea education, is because, they're just putting whatever type of tea in a blending drum, they're spraying it with flavor, and they're just adding whatever. And it's not being blended with intention. It's not being blended with passion necessarily. It's just like, okay, this is going to taste good together. We can use a lower quality leaf because they're not going to be able to taste it. We'll just over flavor it and this and that. And so I 100% agree with you. And I've had that experience too. And I was like, I want to create something that you can feel, and so absolutely, I 100% agree. And when I create a blend, the first thing I think about, I've been in the fitness industry for so long. It's like, how can I create something that can substitute for a dessert at night that is also in, performance enhancing and also delicious? And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I've also had to work with a lot of flavor companies that, sometimes when you taste their flavors, you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel right, or this doesn't, taste right. It feels fabricated. It feels fake. So what I do, the first thing I like to do is try to use as, less flavor as possible, and really let my ingredients lend the flavor to that blend. So I'll give you an example. First thing I think about, and first thing anybody needs to think about when they're creating a blend, is what base are you using? The base is the most important, right? That's your canvas. That's going to signify everything else about the blend. So I'll go with one of my what I think is my most crazy blend, which is my s'mores blend, which is kind of crazy, right? Because you're like, tea, s'mores? That's interesting. But basically, when I'm thinking about, okay, how am I going to create this? Because I love s'mores, I love camping. And I'm like, how am I going to create this? How am I going to get these flavors? So what I did was you think about all the different quality the different base teas have. Kenya black teas are super smooth, like utterly smooth. I wanted
Mhm.
to use a dry mouth Kenya for the base. And then I wanted to use some lapsang souchong for that smokiness, to give it that natural smokiness. So I didn't have to add any, smoky flavor to it. And then I wanted to add hojicha. Hojicha is the roasted green tea. So it has this very delicious, almost nutty, toasty taste to it. It's kind of like the graham cracker to my s'mores, So
I can see that.
yeah, it's so good. And then I added in a little bit of honey bush, which gives it that kind of honey taste, kind of a sweetness to it. And then of course I add chocolate flavoring, and I added real marshmallows. I added and that's the only one where I kind of have this like candy effect to my teas. Most of them are all just natural ingredients. But I wanted to do something kind of crazy on that one. But that's kind of where my mind goes, is like, okay, how can I get it as natural as possible, but at the same time, make this crazy concoction that people can enjoy, and, also being, introduced to lapsang souchong. I mean, most Americans would not
Yep.
would not drink it. And then I added in a little bit of, after trying that the first time, because you go through different renditions. After trying that the first time, I added in a little pu'er because it needed a little bit of thickness, a little bit more thicker mouthfeel, a
Yeah.
creaminess to it that you would get from like a marshmallowy, chocolatey type drink. So that's kind of how I create my concoctions. And each one is different. And generally, the first thing that goes through my mind is, okay, what do I want to create and how do I want to create it? Then I think about the bases and what's going to lend me that flavor. And then I think about, okay, now what are the herbs that will go along with this, that'll either, enhance it by creating a synergistic effect, or will it, kind of neutralize it, or is it going to enhance the performance of this one? Like for instance, with my chamomile mint lavender blend, the lavender enhances that kind of sleepiness. It's my sleepy time tea. So it's like, okay, I got
Yeah.
to add in a little bit of lavender, really get them relaxed, have that aromatic effect. And so it just depends on what I'm creating, with what intention I have in mind. Now, with my s'mores, that's a completely, and it's so funny because with that blend in particular, I was thinking about that blend and creating that in my mind for probably 2 years. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And then I finally did it. And I absolutely love it. I don't, it's not one of my top sellers. But people who try it like it. And if you like smokiness, you'll love it, but it's not for everybody. So, I mean, just like with any tea, it's, very subjective. And, my top sellers are generally teas that, flavor profiles people like.
I think that it's really, really. I love how you explain the story behind the s'mores tea, because often if you're just in a store and you see a bunch of teas and you see a s'mores tea, if you're someone like me or you just sort of go like, okay, that's cute, and you keep going on. Right? Because you do think like, oh, that's sort of novelty, that's sort of silly. But like think about how you explained it.
Mm-hmm.
You said, your fitness, so you got to be watching what you're eating,
Yeah.
and if you're watching what you're eating, you're gonna have cravings.
Yeah.
And isn't it nice to have something that you
Mm-hmm.
can have in that time of crave that really, no, it won't be an actual s'more, but
Mm-hmm.
you're like you said, as long as it's giving you that satisfying essence of it,
Right.
then it's this tea that's like serving an actual very, very legitimate purpose.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
And
yeah, it's having
it's
intention.
right, having the intention behind it. And then also I use high quality leaves and tea. So you're still getting that, L-theanine and all the different components of the health benefits of that tea. So you feel good. For me, tea is my wine. Like people say, oh, you don't
Yeah.
drink. It's like, no, I drink tea. I'm a tea addict, like that's my wine. It calms me. It's because they haven't experienced the euphoria of tea, because they haven't had the quality of leaves, and that experience. They don't quite understand that, like, yeah, you really can get tea drunk.
Yeah.
you
You
know
You must have quite an apothecary. Like, do you just have like a huge cupboard of
Oh my
various
gosh.
herbs? Or do
Yes.
you, how often do you have to order new ones and how big is your collection?
So it takes up half of my kitchen. I am I'm certified cottage food law, so I get to create all of my blends from home. I'm a very small company, so I do usually 2 pound quantities. And I carry about probably 4 kg of each type of tea. Plus, I have to have the blending ingredients. So we're talking, calendula petals, rose petals, lemongrass, lemon verbena, lemon balm, ginger root, cinnamon, all of those things I have to have in at least 2 pound quantities. So I have a huge kitchen, but half of it is primarily taken up by all of my blending ingredients and my teas. And then, of course, I have all of my blends, which I have about 12 different blends. I really tried to narrow it down because, at the beginning stages of my company, I was carrying other types of tea and pure teas. And I said, well, why am I doing this? What is my, they can get that from somebody like you, like have amazing, pure leaf teas that's what you specialize in. Like I would much rather buy that from you than me because that's not my specialty. That's not what I'm focusing my energy on. And it's like, for me, if my niche is blending, then that's what I should be carrying. So I got rid of all my other stuff and I primarily only focus on I even got rid of my Genmaicha because it wasn't a blend that I created. And even though I love Genmaicha and I'm going to drink it for the rest of my life, I'm not going to carry it because that's not my blend. And so what I did was I created one that is a little bit different. I use a Taiwanese milk oolong, and
Mm-hmm.
I blend that with the toasted brown rice, and I created my own special blend that's different. I mean, I've never had that before, and people are loving it, and it's something new and different. And if they want a really high end, Genmaicha, they can get it from a really high end tea source. So, there's enough space, I feel like, in the tea industry for there to be some of everything. Like some people specialize, and even some of my students that come to me through the ITMA, like they specialize in matcha teas, or they specialize
Mm-hmm.
in, raw leaf teas, like you, or they have their own type of blends where they do just savory type blends, or they do, and there's enough for everyone. Like there's enough space for us all to kind of work together. And at the end of the day, if we're educating people about tea, it's only going to create a better tea industry and a
Yep.
more well-rounded tea industry where we can all kind of come together, because this leaf is so magical. It really needs everyone, because everyone's palate's different and everyone's specialty is different. I mean, there are people who just specialize in pu'er. I mean, you can't,
Yep.
and we need that, right? Because you need people that are, well-rounded and all of that and have an overview of what the tea is about. But you also need niches so that you can go to those people and say, okay, well, what is this? There's over 10,000 varieties. I mean, there's no way to be an expert in every single one.
Yep. And I think it's super important to recognize and accept that. Like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not that you don't enjoy these teas. You enjoy these teas very much.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it would be just as important for you to get these to somebody who wanted to learn and experience it. But you looked at it and you were like, what is my specific mission? And you
Mm-hmm.
say that it's not that that's not your mission, but like you said, and I do this a lot, people be like, oh, I wish, why don't you carry a Unytea matcha? Like, why don't you find a matcha? And it's like, I could,
Mm-hmm.
but there are stores and vendors and people that their life is
Yeah.
matcha. Their life is
Yes.
matcha.
Absolutely.
I firmly believe, with good reason, that you'll probably be able to find a better and you'll be happier with the matcha that you will find from that person as opposed to me. It's like maybe someday if I find one that I really love, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it's like I am firmly okay with recognizing that
Right.
and that there's different like you're making higher end blends
Mm-hmm.
with high end leaves. There is also a place for the lower end stuff.
Right.
I don't
Right.
I don't support it as much. Like I don't go out and buy it myself,
Yeah.
but I don't think that it should not get made. I mean, if there are customers that are fine with that quality of tea, which I know there are. I always talk about all the time. My mom, she is completely happy with her Crystal Light powdered tea in the fridge
Oh
and
my
her
gosh.
Earl Grey tea bag.
Oh
That's
wow.
she's aware that there's more stuff out there, but personally, she gets what
That's
she
what she
wants.
enjoys. Yeah.
So I had to like learn that when I was getting into high end teas. Like, oh, why can't I turn my mom? Like, why can't I? And then I just realized it's like, well, now you're forcing something on her that she's not interested in. That's not serving the purpose at all. It'd be
Right.
better just to support her in just enjoying tea.
Right. And either way, there is a population for that, and there is a place for that. I mean, even RTDs, ready to drink teas, they do serve a purpose, and
Yep.
and the purpose is, what else are you going to do with those tea leaves that are, not quality and not quite, ready? They don't have any flavor, but are you just going to throw them away, or are you going to expand the tea industry and allow for somebody to have, a ready to drink tea at the gas station? I mean, there is that. There is
Yep.
that. So, it's not what I'm committed to. I'm not like a tea snob. I'll still go, to the store, and I will, or I'll go to a restaurant, and if they serve me, a bag tea, I'll still drink it. I mean, I'm still going to drink it, and
Exactly. Yeah, I love my garbage tea I get with my dim sum. You know
right?
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
of course it's not good tea,
Yeah.
but it's pleasing because you enjoy tea in general. You're
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, you're eating a meal and a nice experience, you're having
Right.
some food, and you're having a nice warm tea drink with it.
Yeah.
That to me is enjoyable. Is it high end tea?
Yeah.
No. But in that setting, it doesn't need to be.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't need to be. And I mean, there is something to be said that restaurants that do carry higher end teas are
Mhm.
definitely more like, oh my gosh, I want to go there. They even have good
Mhm.
tea, which that's where I want America to get to. I want to get to, like, okay, every single restaurant you go to carries a good quality tea, period. Like, even if it's like pyramid bags and it has loose leaf in it or something, but something a grade up from what majority are serving would be awesome. And especially, hotels too. I mean, that would be, I mean, when I was in Japan, it was like
Yeah.
amazing because you go in the hotel and they just have the whole setup. I mean, you just make yourself loose leaf sencha all day. And it's, they have the teapot, the tea kettle, everything's ready for you. You just roll out of bed and you got all this magical tea, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like a dream come true. Like, why can't we do that in America? Just those little things create so much more of a magical experience. And I think if restaurants understood that, like, you can create so much more of a magical experience by tweaking a couple things, it's not going to cost you a ton of money. It's just going to enhance the experience of whatever you're doing. And my thoughts have always been in the line of, like, I don't understand why why restaurants aren't doing like tea flights or like really cool like concepts with tea. Like, you could do a dessert flight. You could do a
Yep.
I just have so many ideas and so many
Pairings.
things.
There's
Yeah, pairings. I mean, oh my gosh, who wouldn't pay for that? I mean,
a
just amazing.
steakhouse. I mean, a steakhouse even could
Right.
do
Or
tea
even like
pairings.
a tea shop.
Yep.
Like I have so many ideas. Like, I lived in San Francisco for, 7 years, and I'd go to all the tea houses, and I have a lot of friends and a lot of students that are in Chinatown doing the tea house thing, but it's all very the same. You go to one, and they serve you the tea, and you talk about the tea, and it's awesome, amazing. And they have all the background, China culture stories, which is like, it really encompasses like that experience. But I would love to see one that's eclectic. Kind of, there are eclectic tea houses in San Francisco, but I would love to see one that like goes a step further and is like, okay, we have tea flights, we have tea smoothies, we have this, we have, you know what I mean? Like, have all
I've
these
heard
different
stories.
things.
I hear stories all the time from my producers that tell me about how it's so wonderful. You can look down a street in China or Taiwan, and there's just tea shops all down a
Yeah.
whole entire street, but every single one is doing something different.
See, that's
There's
cool.
there'll be some overlapping, they say, but like you said, like this person is focuses on green tea. This person
Mm-hmm.
focuses on black tea. This person focuses on scented teas.
Right.
And it's not that one is better than the other. It's that they're truly all for a different
Purpose. Yeah.
purpose. So it's not like you look down the street and you laugh and you go, "Oh, there's too many tea shops on this street."
Yeah.
No, because each one
You got to
kind of
visit
serves
each
its own
one, which
purpose.
is nice. And I think, the American idea, especially with Amazon is like get everything in one place, but you never will be able to get everything in one place if you're looking for quality. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. It's just not going to happen.
It's a
So
good point.
you've got to go to specialty, you've got to go to small business, you've got to go to, you know, other places. I mean, just like, I love your tea. I mean, your tea is amazing. I mean, I got to get some more of that jasmine. That I was so surprised about that jasmine blend that you have, the scented jasmine that you have,
It's nuts.
the
The
black
black
jasmine. I
tea.
mean, I was like, and because it's such a arduous process to make jasmine and to scent it properly, I just was so blown away that it actually had so much flavor with the black leaves. And I don't know the base of the black leaves that they used, but it must already have floral notes in it because it was just amazing.
I know it's known as, I'm not sure the Chinese name, but it's small bamboo leaf cultivar. The other reason the producer chose it was that it was known to be very low in acidity.
Oh, so
And
smooth. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of really, really acidic teas.
Mhm.
So when I drank it, not only did I like the scenting, but I
Mhm.
never got any type of burn
Nope.
feeling. And I was just told the producer, I was like, wow, I was able to drink it easier than a lot
Yeah.
of other black teas. And the producer said, well, yeah, I chose this cultivar specifically. And, they
See,
did,
I love that.
I don't
I
remember
love that.
exactly how many scentings they did, but they sold two different versions of it. One that was a fewer, less
Mhm.
scentings, and the flavor didn't impart quite as well.
Yeah.
And then there's the one that I chose, and the one that I chose because it wasn't like powdery
Hmm.
floral; it was like fruity floral.
Yeah.
It was a real treat. I had only ever had a jasmine black tea once before I tried it from that producer, but when I was off. It was at the Toronto Tea Festival one year. One of the vendors had one, and you're just holding up your cup and going, "What's this?" And as they're pouring it, they're telling you. She said jasmine black tea, and I love jasmine green tea, but I was just like I couldn't. My brain couldn't quite put those
Yeah.
two together.
I
Uh,
was so surprised too. Like,
They marry really well.
yeah. I mean, it's so rare because, generally I'm skeptical about jasmine as it is because, you get a lot of companies that will just flavor it jasmine and they won't scent
Yep.
it. And then people say, "Oh, I hate jasmine tea." And you find out what kind of jasmine tea, they got and you're like, "Well, that's why because you didn't have real jasmine tea. You had something that was sprayed with perfume."
Yep, actual perfume,
So, yeah.
and it's not just, and I get it because it's not the flavor of jasmine that they're opposed to. It's that
Right.
texture that
It
that scenting is giving it.
Right, because it tastes like flower water. And for the scenting to be so well done that you can taste it through the black tea. And that's the other thing about blending and flavoring is like you can't choose a flavor that's going to be lost with either the leaves or vice versa. So that
Yeah.
was so well done. I was just absolutely floored. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to stock up on this because this is some good stuff. So
It's
yeah.
it's a younger producer that you can tell they learned a lot from the elders who taught them about tea,
Hmm.
but knows enough about tea to know where they can play around with the
Hmm.
parameters a little bit. And that's skill. It takes a lot of skill. I think going back to blending, I think that like you just mentioned, it takes a lot to not just put a couple ingredients together,
Hmm.
but you also have to figure out how they're all going to infuse and
Right. That's
what's
huge.
may overpower and what weakens
Yep.
and how
And
like
it's amazing. Like I'll give you an example of that too, because I was creating my newest blend, Blue Raz, and the butterfly pea flower is this blue, beautiful herb or flower, if you want to call it. Um, that people infuse as a tea, but obviously it's not a tea because it doesn't come from Camellia sinensis. But they call it butterfly pea flower tea, and it's bright blue and it's gorgeous, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how can I take that and actually make it a tea by blending it with tea and creating? You got to think about not only the flavor, the color profile, the clarity. Is it going to look murky together? Are these ingredients going to cause a different color change? So what ended up happening was, because I had seen from another company that I really liked their, they did a blend with butterfly pea flower and jasmine, which I thought was delicious
Oh.
and great. And I'm like, okay, now how can I take this a step further and make it a different type of blend, but not use jasmine? Because to me, if you're using a high quality jasmine, you're losing some of that. I don't know how to explain it. You're losing that entity of that tea. It's like I would never blend with jasmine because I want that. I want to be able to taste all of those jasmine notes, all of that green tea notes. I don't want to lose that. But when you blend with it, you lose pieces of that. So I want to use something where I'm not going to lose it. It's just going to add to, right? So I decided to blend it with sencha, which is a grassy green tea. And so that was going to go, really nice. And then, of course, add flavor. And then as I did that, and then I, got the butterfly pea flower, depending on the percentages, the color changes, right? So now it's not this beautiful blue color. Now it's this other color. So I'm like, okay, got to go through the percentages again to try and get that blue color back. And what I noticed was it still needed more citrus notes. So in order to get those citrus notes, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to add some hibiscus. Hibiscus gives you lots of citrus notes, gives you a lot of extra added vitamin C.
Oh.
And when I did that, it was the perfect flavor. The issue was now it wasn't a blue color, it's a purple color.
Oh.
So essentially, I made a bluish purple blend, and I love it. It's one of my top sellers now because it does that color change. You can actually watch as like if you're putting it into a like a clear vessel, whether it's what do you call it, a tea press or whatever you're using, you can watch the butterfly pea flower, the blue, go into and infuse into the water. And then you can also watch the hibiscus, the red, infuse into the water and then watch the color change to a purple. So I said, you know what? This is my own creation. I'm going to go with it. I originally started with wanting blue, but I'm fine with purple. So.
Well, wait, like you said, you set out for one thing, but you found some very interesting stuff. I never would have thought to add hibiscus for needing to up a citrus profile.
Because I mean, you could use a flavor, right? But why not use the real thing? For me, it's like I saw a tea recently that was flavored with ginger, and I'm like, that's the weirdest thing to me when you can just use ginger. Like when you can just use ginger, like
it's so potent. It's so potent.
Right? Like why would you use a ginger flavor when you can get those actual benefits from real ginger? That's just crazy to me. But I mean, to each their own. But I just thought that was so interesting. I read that the other day and I thought, gosh, that's so interesting. Or, I've seen like you could use peppermint oils or, lemon oils. For my peppermint teas, I like to just use peppermint. I mean, it seems like no brainer, right? I mean, yeah, the taste is a little bit different. And, peppermint oil does lend some cool, health benefits. But if you could use the real thing, why not, right?
Well, it's nice to hear it's really nice to hear you explain your process, because I think your process is amongst people that blend. Yours is like you're top tier. Like just, you know what I mean? Like I know that you have integrity. I've been talking to you for a while. I know you know your stuff. I know that you've done the whole sourcing thing. You really do know everything that you need to know to do what you do. But you really, it's been interesting just through even just us talking this little bit. I've learned so much more just validity of how much integrity you really are putting into like almost every aspect of the blends, even when you're looking at where you got your inspiration and you said, okay, this inspired me, but I don't just want to copy this. I want to, that wasn't the purpose. It was, I found this thing that excited me, and now I want to find a way to recreate this excitement in my own vision, rather than just, unfortunately, I won't even say a lot, but there are some tea blenders out there that it really is just a scoop of this, a scoop of that, toss around a bit, put it in the bag, and put generic brewing instructions on it. What that brings me to an amazing point. What kind of brewing parameter? I mean, geez, especially with teas, with multiple types of tea in a. How do you do your brewing times?
So yeah, that's such a good question, and it's all trial by error. I mean, obviously, there are like stipulations, like with the ITMA, we use standardized timing methods. So you start with that. So let's say you have a green tea, it's going to be about 2 minutes, right? When you have a blend, that's generally true. But like I have blends, you have to brew it. I mean, you have to go through the process, say, oh, this needs a little bit more steeping time. And then I put that on the label. So like, I know that my green mint bancha, I use a bancha for that. And I know that takes a little bit longer because I added spearmint to it. So, and I love the flavor of spearmint versus peppermint. I feel like spearmint is not used enough. It's so much more earthy. It's so much more subtle. Peppermint's like really loud and
in your face
and strong. And you're like, whoa, I mean, and when I do my blending courses, I make them do a comparison between the two, spearmint and peppermint, so they can really get that effect of like, wow, this is completely different plant. Even though people use them interchangeably, it's so different. But anyway, it takes longer for the spearmint to really infuse into the water. So my steeping time on that one is about 3 minutes. So it's just going through the process, especially when you're doing a blend, like even with my s'mores, like, it has a pu'er, but it also has the hojicha. It also has the Kenya. And it's like, okay, I started at, 2-3 minutes and then, go from there. And then, some of my teas, people like to add cream. And if you add cream, you can steep it a little bit longer so that it's a heavier tea so it can hold the cream, more English style type, service. And people love that. And, I try to steer them away from adding cream, from anything other than black tea. But, some people really love cream. So if I can get them away from coffee into tea, it's whatever it takes. Right.
Yeah. Well, I've been just doing a lot of like mingling with people and just having a lot of those intro tea talks again. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, they have that assumption that tea has like less caffeine than coffee, or that it's this low caffeine option to coffee.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
Right. And it's not necessarily true with a lot of teas. It's just that tea's delivery system of caffeine is so different. To where, like you said, honestly, if you want a drink that's going to be steady, reliable, focused energy throughout a long day, right, you'd be much more wise to drink pots of tea intermittently
than you
would be to drink a large Dunkin' coffee.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
And a lot of people, like, I really believe a lot of more people aren't more into tea just because they truly don't know, or they've been given information that's confused them, so they don't know what to believe, so they just sit back until they find someone like you or me who they can ask questions. And but there's just an absolute ton of confusion. There's a ton of confusion when it comes to gong fu. There's a ton of confusion, obviously, when it comes to blends.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree with you 100%. I mean, so you could make the comparison that tea compared to coffee would be like having a whole grain versus simple sugars, right? You get this spike of energy from the coffee because you're getting all this caffeine at once, and it jars your brain and gets you confused. And then with tea, it's a very steady, subtle, focused energy. Just like with whole grains, it's going to give you that sustained energy over time, and you're not going to get that crash. That's the biggest point. And it also helps with focus and all the other things and calming. Like, I'm ADHD, so I'm like all over the place. So for me, it's like, I need my tea. Like, I have to have it. It's constant. And people are like, well, how much tea do you drink a day? Well, I don't really drink anything else. So this is what I drink all day.
Yep. Yeah. I think honestly, I think most tea people that I talk to I would say, have diagnosable ADHD. I mean, I know I've been very,
I've been
very,
diagnosed too.
I've
Yeah.
been very positively diagnosed since like elementary school. So,
Yeah.
I was, I don't know how your upbringing was with that, but my parents, it was during the time when they were just finding out about ADHD and they were just introducing the meds, and my parents pumped. First it was Ritalin, then it was
Mm,
Adderall, and I hated it. It
mm.
didn't help me focus. It didn't do any of that. So when I was 14, my parents said, "Okay, when you turn 14, if you really don't want to take this medicine anymore, you're old enough to say that you don't want to take it." So as soon as I turned 14, I was like, "I'm not taking that anymore," and I struggled. Obviously, I very barely graduated high school, but I learned to use my ADHD. It's
Mm-hmm.
not flawless, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
completely rein it, but I can use it to work on multiple things at the same time. I can, I
Right.
can. It's it. You can really learn to utilize
Oh, for sure. You can use it
things
to
like
hyper
ADHD.
focus too. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, most of the T people I talk to, like really, you have
Yeah.
to have a brain that can jump from very
Yep.
different topics.
Oh, for sure. And so the tea really mellows me out. I mean, it really calms me. And I've seen some studies come out of Japan too, where um, they're giving green tea to children before testing. So I am in the education space, and so I'm always looking for those avenues too. Um, and they are finding that when they're giving the green tea to these kids before their test, they always perform better. Number one, because their focus is better. Number two, because they're calm and they're relaxed. And any type of test creates anxiety. So what are we doing for our students, and what are we doing for our kids to help them ease that anxiety? I've been giving my daughter tea since she was in the womb. I mean, Americans like to say, oh, no tea and this and that while you're pregnant and this and that. No, I don't believe that.
No,
And when
good
I
for
spoke
you.
to other people across the country, they were like, oh, no, we just continue our tea drinking forever. My daughter, they were like, oh, you'll have too much caffeine. You're going to have a tiny baby and this and that. Oh, no, my daughter's huge. Like, she is 3 and she's already in 5 tea. Like, she is strong. She is healthy. And I drank tea the whole time with her. I still drink tea with her every single day. And she likes different types of teas. She drinks anything from black with cream, obviously that's like a treat, to oolong and green teas. And I mean, she loves any kind of teas. And getting them started early, I think, is a huge plus, because then when it comes to times when they really need to start focusing and stuff, I can start making her teas that'll help with her focus and
Yep.
other things
I
like that.
it is a really surprisingly controversial topic in the U.S. Like I really feel like it was just like a newspaper article or a minor study that came out, and
Right.
people it just became a really popular article to circulate in those magazines and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it just became, people heard it for so long in different
Oh my
generations
gosh, it's
that just
ingrained.
they right, but like if they really stopped to really like look and ask questions and study, I mean,
If they look
I
at the
mean,
real research, yeah. And also it's because they group coffee and tea together all the time, even
right,
though it's
right,
extremely different. Like heart patients, for instance, they say, oh, you can't have hot coffee and you can't have tea. But even though tea increases vasculature, and so it actually decreases blood pressure. So it's a completely different plant, completely different entity. You can't group the two together just because it has caffeine. And I find that they do that all the time. And the
yeah,
research and the studies and this and that. I mean, even with exercise, like exercising while I was pregnant. I mean, you would not believe some of the old research that came out, and then the new stuff is showing, oh, you can totally work out all through your pregnancy. And like, I was still
hmm
squatting like 155 pounds pregnant. It's like, you can do that and still have a healthy baby. In fact, the baby gets more oxygen to the baby's brain and blood system. So it's just amazing how, yeah, the old research always comes up and people are so indoctrinated by it.
I think just the big bottom line is just that no matter what you're doing during the pregnancy, as long as your mind is constantly always thinking about, okay, is what I'm doing okay for the baby?
Right.
And then as long as you keep checking in with yourself with that, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see the problem. And then with kids drinking tea, like Don May, his daughter Ayana, she loves Sheng.
Right.
She loves it.
That's
And
amazing.
she handles it fine. She's not a completely wild beast because she has a couple
Yeah.
cups of Sheng.
Yeah. It's the sugar really that makes them crazy, right?
But we're okay. It is so wild, and it's just because we are in the U.S. We're a big mess of misconceptions from either outdated studies or it's so that's I consider that a big part of I guess our job is slowly untangling that for people.
Oh my gosh. It's all about education. And that's why I love tea education so much. I mean, I'll just sit down and have tea tastings with people, and the amount of stuff, like the fact that they don't even know what Camellia sinensis is, or the fact that like green tea, white tea, black tea comes from the same plant. They're like, what? Like, I didn't even know. Like, I didn't know that herbal tisanes weren't teas. Like, they don't even know the basics. And it's crazy to me, like, especially as an educator. And this is, a whole nother topic, but like the bureaucracy behind education and where it's going, I'm just not committed to anymore. And that's why I can't be in the school system anymore. It's not what I'm committed to. And I'm committed to, natural health, teaching people, natural ways that they can do things. And that's just not what the school system is going for. And, teaching health in the school system has been one aspect of it is great because I can teach whatever I want for the most part, but I don't go along with the books because the books are just arbitrary knowledge that they don't really need to know, that is super outdated. I mean, they're still touting milk as, a healthy beverage. And I'm just over it to say the least,
Yeah, it's really it's hard for people. Like you're told something different every single day, and that's why with tea, I think the best thing you can do, you just mentioned it, is just to make tea for someone. Just sit, brew it for them, give it to them, and ask them some questions.
Right.
If you like. I tell people all the time, I think I've taught a lot of people about themselves by coming to the tea and then they'll try a tea I'm serving and they'll go, I don't like this. And I'll go, okay, why don't you like it? And not patronizing, just like helping them explore. It's like, what don't you like about it? Oh, it's sort of like that campfire-y. Oh, okay, yeah, so this is a smoked tea. Do you think that's what's bothering you? And they go, yeah. And I go, okay, well, how can you move past that smoke? Like, what else can you find in the tea? Oh, well, I also kind of get this nice earthiness. And then let's say that person doesn't end up loving that tea, but that person's going to go home and they'll like literally have learned something about themselves that day. And it's showing people that they can learn such pretty significant lessons literally by just like sipping some tea.
Absolutely. It's amazing, right? I mean, the process is amazing. It's just sitting down and having tea, the feeling that you get, even with like a warm beverage or just, I mean, what is tea associated with, right? When you see pictures of tea and, even kinesthetically, it's a process of like relaxation and exploration. Yep. It's so different when you look at like, oh, tea time versus coffee time, right? And it's not that I'm so against coffee. It's just such a different feel. And for me, coffee doesn't work at all. So it's really harsh on my system, and I can't drink more than like a half a cup of coffee. And sometimes I'll indulge in it, like when, my family's over and everybody's having coffee. It's like, okay, let's have, a half a cup. I mean, my family's primarily tea drinkers too, like me, but it happens once in a while. But then if I drink too much, I'm in the bathroom all day. So it's like, it's not even worth it,
If I drink even a cup of coffee, I'm visibly trembling, and my brain is in a point where I can't focus on anything. Wow. My brain just rattles around up there in this anxious state. And I just, the joke is that I love the taste of coffee. I
Oh,
love, like, coffee ice cream is absolutely one of my favorite flavors.
delicious.
I love the taste of coffee.
Yeah.
I can't handle it. My body
Um,
just can't handle that amount
yeah.
of caffeine without any type of, like, the L-theanine. If there wasn't L-theanine in tea, I don't know if I'd be able to handle a
Yeah.
lot of teas either.
That's, I think, where blends come in as well, because when you're blending it with other herbs, you're also getting other things. There's not as much caffeine. And it can balance out a tea. It can make it less acidic. It can make the blend hot. It can make the blend cold, depending on what you're trying to create. That's another aspect that I really love about blending as well. And I have some students that come out. I mean, some of my blending students come out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would buy this from you. Like, this is so good. It's like, oh my god, like, some of them are better blenders than me. I'm like, I don't, I want to create a world of amazing tea blenders and have
Yeah.
different niches. I mean, that's what it's about, right? Like, I'm not here to compete with people. I'm here to share tea with the world and to have, allies in tea. And I'm not here to compete with this person or that person on their blends and my blend. People ask me all the time, well, aren't you worried that they're gonna like copy your blends? And aren't, because I give people my ingredients. I give people what I do. Like, it's
Yeah.
not that serious. Like, if you want to compete with me and have the same exact blend, it's not going to be the same. I am very intentional about my blends. I'm going to put my energy and love and passion, and that's going to be different than what you're putting into the blend. So it's never going to be the same.
No, it really won't. And just being someone who has personally studied tea and the intention of the person who's making the tea, it's 100% true.
It
The
is. Yeah.
intention, the connection between humans, emotions, and plants. I I really, if you would you tell me this 15 years ago, I'd just say, to stop hitting the bong so hard. But I really would. It's just, you know what I mean? It seems
Yeah.
sort of like you're just getting a little out there.
Mhm.
But honest to God, with my
Mhm.
experience and other people that I talk to and I learn and study, there is this insane connection when you take somebody who's making something with intention, integrity, they're doing it for the love of their heart, they make it with that love, and then it's given to somebody who is willing to accept
Yes,
that all that it happens.
it does.
And
Yeah.
it is a truly to us, those of us who know it exists, we
Mhm.
have an amazing trick in our pocket that a lot of people in society
Yep.
don't have.
And they will never understand. And I mean, hopefully, there is an awakening happening in terms of like energy in general.
Mhm.
And so I'm hoping that, people will start to understand how it actually works. And I mean, when it boils down, we're all energy. So we're all connected,
Yep.
we're all energy. And that energy that you get from that plant source, whether it's tea or a different plant source, goes in, you start from the very beginning, from the soil to the plucking I mean, when I experienced plucking tea leaves and producing my own tea leaves for the first time, I understood the arduous amount of work that goes into it. You can learn all about it, but when you experience that and you know that, like, oh my gosh, this is really going to affect the tea plant, you're like, whoa, this is like for real, when you're watching it happening. And I worked with some tea masters in Nepal who explained to me how even just the lighting, like full moon, changes the
Mhm.
biochemical structure of the plant. Like, it's just so amazing. And I really just want to share with the world how amazing this plant is and how many uses, like, even other than just drinking tea, right? I have a book coming out about,
Oh.
yes, about tea. It's called Tea Revolution. And it's really about like just completely changing your mindset on this plant, Camellia sinensis, and what it's used for. Like, I know there's a lot of tea books out there that are more encyclopedia-ish, like,
Yeah.
this is this type of tea and this is this type of tea, but I've never seen something come out where it encompasses like everything about tea and the possibility of tea, because I really want to see a tea revolution. I want to see tea become like so inherent in people's lives, every aspect of their lives. That's what I want to see. That's my goal in life, and I know that that's my mission for sure.
When? Oh, so I'm excited. When does this? When does? What's the expectancy on the book? I mean, are you still working
So
on it? Are you?
I'm done with it. I need to go through it again. I've been creating it for like 2 years, and I, have changed a couple things and changed things around as I learn more and do different things and, aspects that I want to add into it. And there's still an aspect I kind of want to add into it, the energy part. And I, you know, I'm getting to the point where I'm almost feeling like it's ready. I have editors looking at it right now, kind of like doing the editorial type work, and then I just
Mhm.
have to figure out how to like distribute and do that kind of thing. But it'll be like no other book. It's not going to be like an encyclopedia. It's not going to be like facts about tea. It's not anything like that. It's completely different. Definitely has my personality. I'm pretty sarcastic in it, so it definitely has that, and it definitely has like a blending section and stuff like that. But I definitely wanted it to be different for like the everyday reader, not a tea expert. It's not for like becoming a tea expert or like learning about different facts about the tea. It's more like a fun read where you can learn the possibility of tea.
And you're right. There are I have a pretty large assortment of tea books that I've read myself, and um, that specific, like you said, talking about the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think a single book I have touches on that, to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, maybe areas that are kind of maybe close, but they wouldn't go into it very far.
Yeah.
I am, first of all, I'm very excited to hear that you've written a book, but I'm super excited to hear more about it. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
even more excited. I mean, I'll definitely be one of the first people to grab it. That's really cool. Um,
Awesome.
so a kind of an amazing full circle. We just kind of came up to our time.
Okay.
I want to massively thank you
Mm-hmm.
for coming on. This was so much fun.
It was so much
Um,
fun.
I really am very confident a lot of people are really going to enjoy this one. We touched on topics that I've never really been able to touch upon here with anybody yet. So, thank you for that. If people want to reach out to you for more, I'll put links to your store and stuff like that in the description. But
Awesome.
what's your preferred way to be contacted?
Email or Instagram or, anyway, at redzentea@gmail, or you can contact me through Instagram at redzentea. Um, and let me think what else. Yeah, that's pretty much easiest way to contact me. Most people contact me through email. Yeah, redzentea@gmail.
Beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you again. I wish that you continue to stay happy and healthy, and
Yeah, you
good
as
luck
well.
to you. Good luck to you and your family.
Thank you.
And we'll have to have you on again. So thank you again. This has been Tea and Stuff, and we'll see you again soon.